Hello and welcome to the VGC Guide to Gholdengo. I've started this series to break down strong meta threats for the Regulation H series of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but many of the Pokemon covered will most likely apply to the upcoming Pokemon Champions, so if you're watching this in the future, hello, I hope this helps. Gholdengo is fantastic at dealing pure high damage without being interrupted with its monstrous 133 special attack stat, alongside with its signature ability Good as Gold, making it immune to all status moves. Seriously, James Freak, what were you thinking? Making it incredibly hard to remove or hinder. And to top it all off, it gets an extremely broken signature move, Make It Rain, a 120 base power special move that hits both opponents with the only downside of a -1 to your special attack every time it's used, which can be extremely manageable given the right build, which we will talk about momentarily. Gholdengo also has one of the best type combinations in the entire game of Ghost and Steel, which gives you complete immunity to 3 types, normal, fighting and poison. 3 very prevalent types thanks to Fake Out and also Sneasel being everywhere in Regulation H. This is the most immunity you can have possible in the game. You also resist a whopping 9 types, while only being weak to 4, making it that much more difficult of a Pokemon to remove. As mentioned earlier, Gholdengo thrives on dealing some of the highest damage in the game. With that being said, I believe there are 2 builds I think are really worth talking about today. A Nasty Plot set where you build your team around keeping Gholdengo safe and Oko and Pokemon on the field with a +2 Make It Rain. Similar to the team definitely not Wolf Glick finished top 8 with at the Milwaukee Regional. Or a Choice Specs Terra Steel Gholdengo, where you just intend on pressing Terra turn 1 to get a further 50% stab on your Make It Rain, and worry about the stat drops after both your opponents have been knocked out from the sheer raw damage. Which recently won the Pittsburgh Regional Championships with Chopper Cross the 4th. Yes, that is a real name, and it's the coolest one I've ever seen in my life. Both can run similar EV spreads, but the Nasty Plot set can typically take away some damage in trade for some more bulk. For the set I've recommended today, you can tank most Annihilate Raytress that have a +1 stack, putting Gholdengo at an advantage it usually wouldn't have against most Annihilate. Another much more simple yet very viable set still is the standard Timid Nature 252 special attack and 252 speed, which Gholdengo loves with his fancy glasses, which I also think is a good baseline if you want to build a Gholdengo centered team. I would also recommend that when team building, you should always decide your own team strengths and weaknesses and then train your Pokemon accordingly. But these sets recommended are great bases to start around. I will link a Pokemon damage calculator in the description to help you decide your IV and EV spreads. There is a very wide pool of Pokemon that have shown lots of success with Gholdengo. The biggest star, to no one's shock at all, is Incineroar. Its biggest key is Intimidate. Since many of Gholdengo's weaknesses often hit with physical damage, the most common being Fire and Dark, it gives Intimidate so much more value. And a good Fake Out hit can be crucial to setting up one Nasty Plot into a typically scary Pokemon, and then Okoing them the next turn very safely. Another great Pokemon for a more offensive team is Dragonite. The pure reason that Gholdengo's type matchup covers Dragonite stupidly well. Make It Rain is super effective against 3 of the 4 of Dragonite's weaknesses, while Gholdengo also resists all of them. Seriously, with both of these Pokemon being as strong as they are, why have they been given such an insane combo? And to top it all off, Dragonite is straight up immune to what I'd argue is Gholdengo's biggest weakness, being ground. Dragonite can also set Tailwind, doubling Gholdengo's pretty good but manageable speed stat, making him an unstoppable monster. 2 more defensive synergies I thought were definitely worth an honorable mention were Mousehold and Pelipper. Mousehold's Follow Me can safely redirect any ghost moves into it, since it's immune to ghost type moves, while Gholdengo would usually take super effective damage here. Mousehold's ability Friend Guard also makes its partner Pokemon take 25% less damage, which is a ridiculous amount of damage reduction for a Pokemon that can still output very respectable damage of its own. Pelipper gives a nice mix between Mousehold and Dragonite, a sort of jack of all trades, master of none combination that definitely helps Gholdengo fit into rain-centric teams. Pelipper has the same Tailwind speed control that Dragonite can offer, while cutting the damage in half of super effective fire-type moves, with the Drizzle ability setting Rain on switch-in, which both boosts water moves by 50% and reduces fire moves by 50%. And finally, Pelipper is immune to Gholdengo's ground-type weakness, making it a fantastic switch-in tool. Unfortunately, it is very limited by its very weak stat pool though. But don't get me wrong, the Drizzle ability is just that strong that Pelipper is a really strong Pokemon still. When it comes to bad matchups for Gholdengo, it's quite simple to actually pick out scary Pokemon. Do they KO you quickly? If yes, run. Another note to look out for are moves that reduce your special attack, 2 of note being Snarl and Struggle Bug, since these are some of the only ways of Gholdengo having its damage reduced and potentially being a liability on the field. One of the scariest Pokemon for countering Gholdengo is, I'm sure you've guessed it, Incineroar. Maybe I should start a count of how many times I mention Incineroar in these videos. If you think that'd be funny, you should put it in the comments. If trained right, even moves like Flare Blitz have the potential to one-hit KO a Gholdengo. Meanwhile, Incineroar resists all of your stab moves, so make sure the Wrestling Cat can't swing safely at you or you will be having a bad game. Another very scary Pokemon to look out for, which feels like it's made to deal with Gholdengo, is Volcarona. One Quiver Dance setup will make any of Gholdengo's hits feel like a light breeze, while it can now one-shot you with Heat Waves without any chance of redemption or mercy. Even then, Volcarona is very specially bulky with an impressive 105 special defense, so a more supportive Rage Powder or Tailwind Surf can cause you a decent amount of trouble. Definitely an underrated mon to look out for. Finally, to end the list of scary Pokemon, the one I would argue you should look out for the most, the bear out of time itself, Ursaluna Blood Moon. There are a few main reasons worth discussing that make Blood Moon a terrifying threat. To start, its typing. Ground and Normal is both an extremely great offensive and defensive tool for countering Gholdengo, making Blood Moon completely immune to Ghost type moves while dishing out huge stab Earth powers that easily threaten to take out the Cheese String with one shot. Another big strength is Blood Moon's ability, Mind's Eye, which allows the user's normal and fighting attacks to hit Ghost-type Pokemon, which can make many defensive terrors on Gholdengo just not great. Blood Moon will always connect to Gholdengo, which with a stupid 140 base power, with basically no drawback, means even the resisted Gholdengo will still take a big chunk of damage you just can't ignore. Finally, and to a lesser extent, since items are interchangeable, a lot of Blood Moon typically hold the Assault Vest, which directly counters Gholdengo, boosting Blood Moon's special defense by 50% with the drawback that it can now only use damaging moves, meaning it now walls so much of Gholdengo's damage. As you can see, Gholdengo is stupidly overpowered. I'm sure you knew that before clicking on this video, but I hope this video has been a great help to you. If it has, be sure to like the video and comment which Pokemon you'd like to see in a guide next. The more interactions these guides get, the more I can make them. So if you enjoyed, I'd say it's a pretty great win-win, don't you? And be sure to check out my Twitch if you have any direct advice. I always answer any beginner VGC questions, so don't hesitate to come say hi. Have a great day, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.